We've been living in sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go! All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of
Closed-door practice today for the Buffalo Bills, so no notes there, but we did get the unveiling of the 2025 Arrival jerseys, which the Bills, along with the AFC East and the NFC West, will be taking part in. The Bills are calling theirs the Cold Front jerseys. They're going to be wearing them at home against New England, Week 5 on October 5th. And for more on the jerseys, we do have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. The Bills, though, did have some other announcements today to do with the roster. The team has signed cornerback Jalen Kimber and edge Andre Jones Jr. to the practice squad, and to do so, they have released cornerback Daquan Hardy. We'll get more on it today when Sal Capaccio joins the show at 4 p.m. Dolphins running back Jalen Wright is going to miss the start of the season after having a minor procedure, according to head coach Mike McDaniel. While the Bengals, they have signed guard Dalton Reisner. Week 1 of college football does begin tonight. UB is in action. They're on national television at Minnesota over on FS1. Kickoff is at 8. You can also listen to the game over on our sister station, The Bet 1520, and then some other notable games. The day will get underway at 5:30. Number 25, Boise State at South Florida. And then at 9 o'clock, a neutral site game as Nebraska takes on Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. And then baseball, Bison's on the road versus Indianapolis, 6:35 start time. And with UB also going on around the same time, you can listen to the Bisons over on 107.7 and 104.7, The Wolf. And the Yankees, they are in Chicago versus the White Sox just after 7:40. And a reminder, Sports Talk on WGR is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long, and visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
They have this Panther sound effect that is just the cheesiest, stupidest sounding thing. Big voice guy going, Panther goal scored by Sam Reinhart. Where'd you get that thing?
I trapped it. Been keeping it in my bathroom at the motel, feeding it old pizza.
It's Mike Schopp.
If you're calm, that wondrous big cat will be calm too. But if you're scared, that beautiful death machine will do what God made it to do. Namely, eat you with a smile on its face.
And the Bulldog. On WGR Sports Radio 550.
There it is, already a better start than yesterday by my not talking right away. It's trending. Things are trending up around here. Was today the day you learned that the Bills wore light blue and silver in the beginning of their history, first year of the franchise? Or did you know that? Or are you finding it out right now from me? This has been, small volume, low volume, but this has been sort of a hope of mine, not quite a dream, I won't take it that seriously, a hope of mine for many years, that one of these times when they whip out a new throwback uniform, which is, as you're finding, more and more prevalent all the time in the NFL and in sports, you can turn on a baseball game or an NBA game and have no idea who you're watching. Because, the Red Sox are in yellow, or just like the stadium is the only, the score box. But if you just sort of forget that, if you don't cheat, the stadium is your only chance of knowing who the teams actually are sometimes. Unless you can keep up with all these. But for a long time, as the Bills we're talking about clothes, it won't go very far. I will say, I will like them. And you will say, if anything, no, I don't. And then what? Handshake emoji, and we move on to something more interesting, right? Like, there's no argument to be had when it comes to uniforms, really. I guess over the years, we've had our time with, you want Bills or Sabres to come out with something, it's usually nostalgic. It's probably not green or yellow, although the Sabres did try yellow. That didn't really kill. But the Bills, first year, 1960, believe it or not, before my time, they looked, as far as I can tell and have read, almost exactly, from the waist up, almost exactly like the Lions look. With that very similar light blue. What do the Lions call theirs? Hawaiian blue, maybe? That sort of mid to light blue jersey and the silver helmet. The Bills helmets, I believe, in 1960 had numbers on them, not a logo, but they had the uniform number of the player on them. I dug a little bit into my card collection today. I couldn't find a lot. The 60, so there's a 1960, I have every Bills card from like 1960 through the early 90s. And the 60 top set, there's a Bills team in that set. This is a brand new team in 1960 that they'd had no games ever before. And who knows when these cards get made, but they're usually, I think, going to be in the offseason. So it's players, but in just sort of random, different uniforms. There's not a Bills uniform yet for there to be a picture of or even a drawing. I'm not even sure that in 1960 the cards weren't illustrations. In baseball, I remember this from my hobby days, 1957 was the first year that Topps used photography on its cards. 56 and back was all illustrations. And the transformation from 56 to 57 baseball, by the way, is just awesome. Because 56 are these beautiful illustrations of Mickey Mantle, Jackie Robinson, and you've got sort of like a picture-in-picture look. There's they don't need to take the picture. They're just drawing it. There's an action shot and then another. Just 56s are amazing. 57, it's way scaled back, but, it's actual photographs. So it's Hank Aaron holding his bat, or it's a close-up of Clemente. 60 football, Bills, Topps, no rhyme or reason to the uniforms. Who knows what Topps even really knew about who was going to be on these teams, these new AFL teams in 1960. 61, however, 61 Fleer is the set that I was looking up today because those guys are pictures of the Bills in their uniforms, white with the blue numbers. They're all in white. There's no blue jersey. It must have just been like maybe one training camp practice or something, even from the year before. I don't know. Maybe I should know this. Do you know these answers? Wow, if you do. Somebody does. 61 Fleer. There's like 10 or 12 Bills players, all in white. Maybe one has a helmet on, but they kind of all don't. The point of them is sort of like, to pose. Albert Dubenion, Golden Wheels, Bills Wall of Famer. It's sort of a close-up on him. Looks like, he's just trying to catch a pass. You see the ball in the picture. It's chesting up, no helmet on. It's great. And that's the only football card images that set, that group, that team, that Bills team, is the only set of images in the card world, as far as I know, of the Bills in these white with blue number uniforms, which is what they're going to wear in Week 5. I mean, it's not exactly, obviously. And that goes without saying, because if you read any of the descriptions that the teams are offering of their new uniforms, I don't know. It's insufferable. The descriptions of like what is actually going on. I mean, I know they put a lot of time and thought into all the things, all the Easter eggs, all the things that are happening on these jerseys, but some of Seattle, this is not the worst. Seattle it's AFC East, NFC West. Seattle's uniforms, well, let them tell you. The innovative design introduces an iridescent green helmet and uniform accents with sound waves and 12 logos to reflect the noise that reverberates throughout the stadium on game days. All right. I mean, that's not the worst. I got to call up Arizona. I'm only one man. I got to call up Arizona because when I read theirs earlier, I just couldn't believe it. Asymmetrical tough red. That's an official color. Tough red and copper pant stripes, colors representing the heat that molds us and the commerce that built this state. I mean, I don't even hate these, but I just can't read about them. Just like, all right, settle down, Arizona Cardinals. Just settle down. I know we hate them, right? I think they're great. Maybe of course, you might disagree. And you might be somebody, and I probably used to be this person who would bristle at looks that are just, too different from what I'm used to my team looking like. We've certainly been through it with the Sabres. When the Sabres went to black, and then they came out of it and went to blue, and then they went to the goat head, and then the slug, and then they went to yellow, and then back, all the different, the whole evolution of the Sabres jersey. It's not even really an evolution. It's just like, let's try this. Let's go over here. Let's do that. And then you go to a game and there's just like 20 different, it's just like, not great. You don't exactly have the Winnipeg Jets whiteout at a Sabres game. You have all kinds, it's nobody's fault. Well, it's not our fault. You have all kinds of different uniforms from their many years. So, we know this from them. I probably used to be somebody that wouldn't ever have wanted the Bills to change anything. I mean, whether that goes back to pre-red helmets or not, I probably wasn't thinking about this then. I was a fan then. I was a child. But then, keep it pretty much the same. They went to the Bledsoe jerseys there that Ross Tucker always makes fun of when it comes up on his visits. And, mostly, though, it's pretty close to the same uniform. And then the throwbacks are very close to the Bills. The blue's a little different. The helmet's a little different, but still white. This is the biggest, yes or no? This is the biggest diversion they've tried. And, it's going to be the league's mandate. I feel like they're probably excited about it. I am. I asked my wife to come look at a picture today of it's a picture of Josh Allen wearing this uniform. Is that really him? Is it all photoshopped? Or it feels like Allen might spend maybe too much of his time modeling in these pictures that the Bills put out. But maybe they don't even need him to do it. They can just sort of, like Adam Schefter does when a player is traded and immediately there's the tweet from Schefter with the guy in the new uniform. Aaron Rodgers signed with Pittsburgh, and there he is playing for Pittsburgh. Who needs that? We can wait. That's my opinion. Anyway, I asked her what she thought of this Bills uniform. She said, well, it doesn't really look like the Bills. And, that's fair. But I don't mind. I think maybe everybody's would be different. You could get to a point at which, like, all right, enough already. Maybe if you're an NBA fan, that's happened for you. Maybe it's not happened. I mean, the Sabres, this one, I think, is debated among the fans, is whether, like, it's too much with the black jerseys. Just pick one. Pick a lane. It's almost like, it's not quite half and half, right? But it's, a third of their games or even more, I don't know, are in the black jerseys. And for me, usually every night, turn the game on, and I have no idea what to expect. But I think, despite the fact that the descriptions of the uniforms are insufferable and just like, oh my God, such an eye roll. Okay, I think they look cool. And like I said, I've wanted the Bills to have this blue and silver option, attempt, let's say, for many years, and I'm glad they did it. Today, and if you have a thought on the jerseys, like a serious one, right? They're the worst. They're the best. I'm not sure how much interest there is anything in between, but if you think you're somebody that can nail either of those extremes, I'd listen. 803-0550 is the number. I think they're pretty cool. Last point from me anyway for now, they evoke, and they're even described as such, the cold, right? I mean, that's the theme of this uniform, and they're wearing them in week 5. It's at least a night game. Average temperatures, I looked, October 5th, is it? Are in the 50s. So if you get a cold night where it sort of like fits with what it looks like, that would be a story, because it probably won't be that cold that night. And New England's are interesting too. They're both white helmets for that game. So maybe we need Joe Ferguson to lead the charge or whatever it is for that game. That's not fair. I don't mean that as a shot. Just you think of Ferguson, right? Because he was the Bills quarterback for many years, and in 84, when every other team, well, not the Jets, besides the Jets, the other 3 fellow teams, the AFC East, Colts, Patriots, Dolphins, all had white helmets, and the Bills went to red helmets, and the legend has always been that's because Ferguson had a tough time differentiating down the field. Hopefully, Josh Allen doesn't have that problem, and I guess Drake May does in Week 5. I like the Patriots thing, too. I like them all. I just don't want to read about them. It's almost like, don't tell me how the sausage is made. Just don't give me words like reverberating and tough red and this nonsense for your uniforms. You look cool, though. Today, Sal at 4, and Chris Trapasso will join me. Joe Ostrowski is unavailable. He reached out to me very early this morning and was disappointed to have to cancel, but he had a great reason, and it's, he'll be with us next week, and he's looking forward to that. He said, I'm sure he is. So am I. And I'm sure Bulldog would say the same. I went on his show this morning with Sammy P, who will be on tomorrow, Bet Sweats on the BetMGM network. And that's always really fun. They're both so good. And I think maybe the first question, it was the first question, because they aired a clip of Sam Panayotovich. We can bring this up tomorrow. Remind me of Sam betting the Bills to win the Super Bowl this year. And he said, I'm not sure how literally this is to be taken, but he said, like, for years, he's always bet Kansas City. Don't overthink it. But this year, he moved from Kansas City to Buffalo for this bet. 7-1 plus 700, the Bills to win it all. And Joe asked me, how do you feel when you hear somebody bet that? Like top tout Sam Panayotovich betting the Bills to win the Super Bowl. How does that go over with you? Me as a person who's lived in the 716 my entire life. How do you react to that? And, two ways. One, it's a great compliment. It's exciting. It's possible. It's realistic, believable, all these things that they could actually do it. The hurdle I have that's not so easy to clear, emotionally or psychologically, is that our sports history is about being without that championship, Bills and Sabres. Yes, the Bills in the AFL, and yes, I was just talking about the 1960 Bills, 64-5 they won. But still, the identity is partly not having won. That's what it's under. We don't all think about it as often as each other, but that's what is underneath our whole existence, I guess I would say, as sports fans, is that we're 0 for life for these two teams, or at least since, the Super Bowl came into existence, which is longer ago than the Sabres even came into existence, but still. So how do I react? It's everything. It makes sense. It's exciting. It's believable, all those things, but it's also, when it comes to championships, it's been a long, cold winter, right? I mean, just so many near misses and sources of heartbreak. I think there are 2 Bills games, I would say, and this isn't a question that Joe asked me. We didn't go into the rabbit hole when it came to, like, their past. But as I was thinking about it over the course of the day, I ended up getting here, which is, I think I would say there are 2 Bills games, and maybe 3, that are hard to stop reliving. There's a great episode of my all-time favorite show, The West Wing, about one of the characters who had this traumatic event, and he's got a therapist in with him, and the therapist says something like, we need you to remember the event without reliving it. We can remember these games, but are best not to relive them, right? Not to compare, a sporting event to a shooting in that case or anything like that. But still, like, remembering them, sure. Reliving them is maybe a little bit much. But I would say, to use that word, reliving, there are 2 games I would say are the hardest to stop reliving. As in, playing them back and imagining certain things being different that would have led to a different outcome. That's what I mean. Something bad happens in your life. Oh, what if I had done this? What if I had left 5 minutes later? What if this had happened? And all the different things where you can tie yourself up by imagining different details. It's 13 seconds. I mean, that's obvious. Bills fans that have been here for this may never stop reliving the three plays: the kickoff, the pass to Tyreek Hill, the pass to Kelsey. How did that happen? And we still don't really know. That's 5 years ago now, almost 4.5 years ago, right? 21 season. It's 3.5 years ago, I guess, but still, it's fresh enough. And that one is a hard one to stop reliving. Why did they kick it in the end zone? How did the Chiefs execute those two plays? Oh my God. Do they have their championship? It would have been the Rams. Had they beaten the Bengals, it would have been the Rams in that Super Bowl. I mean, it's not exactly this Philadelphia team that people called the best roster in the league. It was right there. 13 seconds, and then it's got to be Norwood, right? I mean, if I wanted to, and I won't do this to you, if I wanted to, it's 35 years ago, I think my math is right on this one, there are enough people listening right now that'd be like, oh, why didn't the Bills run more? Why didn't they call this timeout? Why didn't this happen, the laces, right? I mean, all the details in that game, and they lose by one. These are the two Bills games, I think, I would say, are the ones that fans will keep reliving. Maybe that all ends when they win one. I don't know if, Bulldog's not here to tell me in his case, but if Red Sox fans still keep reliving Bucky Dent. I mean, they've won 4 times in the last 20 years or whatever it is, 21 years. So do you have to really do that? Do you have to really keep reliving Bucky Dent and the 75 Reds? It's healthier to not do that. If we ever get our one, then we'll know how that feels. Music City Miracle might be third. And I say it's a wild card game that the Bills should have won. But do they make that run? Plenty of people will tell you that they were capable of it. We just don't know. They would have had to win 2 more AFC playoff games and then a Super Bowl. That's Kurt Warner's Rams. And I don't know. It seems like a big ask. But it's still, obviously that's a famous game. And I bet people that are were on that team maybe will be, ones to keep reliving that game. I think with the Sabres, by the way, there are more. How many Sabres games? None in the last decade, right? Or more, maybe. So you had to go back a little bit at least, I think. It's up to you. But how many Sabres games would you count as ones that you can't stop reliving? Carolina, Game 7, Game 5 as well? Carolina? Is there anything from that Ottawa series? Dallas in the finals in 99? Carolina, sure. I went to Game 5 in Raleigh. They're up 3-1. Oh, but there aren't specific. There's a great chance they had an overtime. It's not as easy to pinpoint what you'd love to have been different. 13 seconds, why didn't they just cover these guys? Why did they rush anybody? Why did they kick it deep? There's sort of simple questions. Hockey games are not, that one anyway, are not as simple for that. And Game 7, they're in the lead, but they've got it. Why didn't, this guy or that guy get hurt? How could that have been preventable? There's one Sabres game for me that I've not mentioned that I would count as the one that I have the hardest time not reliving, thinking about. It's all within the context of the quest for the first title. Both teams are attached. Buffalo's first title. There's one game that I think is, I know it would be my choice, that's the hardest to sort of put away. And I'll let you know what that is as we go here. We can talk about the uniforms. We can talk about anything pertaining to the upcoming season. We've been through so many things from James Cook this offseason, questions about the secondary at this point. The wide receiver room never stops being a topic. I'm here for all of it. 803-0550 is the number. Sal, Chris Trapasso still to come today. Bulldog is off until Tuesday, post-Labor Day weekend. He and I will be here together then. This is Mike Schopp. Thanks again for being with me. This is WGR.
You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. To all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
There's definitely elements of this where I wonder how much the Bills can save for the playoffs. Not saying you're going to sleepwalk through the regular season or that it's easy or that you don't want the number one seed. But at the end of the day, you have to beat Kansas City, and you're going to have to beat Baltimore again, and you're going to have to beat these best teams. So saving your best for those times, saving your best plays, if there's any way to possibly do that, which is challenging in football, I think the Bills are at that point.
One of my guests yesterday, Steve Palazzolo, the Check the Mic podcast with Sam Monson. Always a fascinating concept, this idea. And did the Patriots do it? Have other teams? Is it absolutely sacrilegious to ever even ponder it for teams? The idea of whatever it might be, holding back something for the playoffs. Itself, it's like not cut and dried because you could, I mean, this is what would normally happen. You'd navigate through the year. Maybe you're playing a team in the playoffs you've already played. And the whole thing is about new wrinkles. We showed this, so this game will do that. That's fundamental to game planning and to football, ideology. It doesn't have to be that you had this idea, in August to run this out of this formation or anything like that. Let's just not do it. I mean, I think there would just sort of naturally be things like that. Let's go into the season, but it's not sinister what Steve is describing, but it's not so calculated like, all right, well, we'll just save it for January. The problem that teams would have with that, and they would never admit to doing it, is the assumption it would sound like it would be that they're making that they will be in the playoffs. And imagine if you knew that the Bills had this, I don't know, what do you want it to be? A trick play, a whole package, anything in their pocket, and that they were not going to use it until the postseason, and then they don't make it, or they make it and they just get blown out by whatever, and the whole thing goes to dust. It's just wasted. Some invention that just never sees the light of day. That would just not fly. So it's not the kind of thing that teams would ever disclose, but it's really fascinating, I think, to consider it. And I wonder I wonder to what extent the Patriots went in their era of dominance to just treat the regular season like the preseason almost. Not something Bill Belichick would ever say to his team or to the media, but it might have been real. And you have the Bills here as a big division favorite, but it would be the kind of, no other team in the NFL is quite this, unless it's Kansas City. It would be the kind of setup this year where you could try that, whatever it might be. It's fun to think about. But I said to Steve yesterday, just to wrap on this point, that last year was the year for this. They had been to the playoffs 4 or 5 times in a row. They had lost to Kansas City 3 times in the playoffs by this time last year. So the season goes along and you're just rolling and everybody else in your division is terrible. I mean, there's where you pocket concepts for the playoffs, and maybe they even did it. They clinched first place on December 1st. When was their first playoff game? Like mid-January? Early January at least? That was the setup for this kind of thing, and if they did anything of the sort, well, they still got beat. What do you think? 803-0550 is the number. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today and tomorrow. Sal will join me at 4. This is Tim with us now. Hi, Tim.
Oh, hey, Mike. How are you?
Hey, good.
Interesting topic that you had before. I know you mentioned that the Sabres may have some more of those games than the Bills, probably because of the playoff series being 7 games.
Yeah, good point.
The whole skate in the crease thing, to me, it was a rule. To me, that should have been called back. I know it was Game 6, and I don't know what the difference would have been, but it shouldn't have happened. And I mean, you brought it up. It's one of those things where it comes on NHL Network, and I'll still watch the game and be frustrated the whole time because I know how it's going to end. But it should never have happened.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Good point about hockey maybe being different because of the series aspect. What I was talking about earlier is games of the two teams that you can't stop reliving. 13 seconds, Super Bowl 25, Brett Hull. So I said before, there's one Sabres game for me that I hadn't mentioned. It's not this game either that is this for me. Like, can't stop reliving it. When I think about, it's really only, like, you think about the history of the two teams and, the times you got close. Then it's like, this one. And I'll tell you what my game is in a second. The reason, he's totally right. Of course that should not have happened. The reason I wouldn't pick that night is mostly, it's really around this point. As close as they were to winning the Stanley Cup with that team and in that series, I don't think they were ever supposed to win it. It was not a series where it was theirs. It was never really theirs. They were, pretty much Dallas's equal. And they certainly could have won. And lots of hockey series, hundreds, at least dozens, if not hundreds of NHL playoff series have been won by the lesser team. And you went into 3 overtimes of Game 6 here, down 3-2. You were so close. I don't pick that one. Maybe I'm rationalizing a little bit because I don't like thinking about the controversial aspect of it. It just was never, do they win that night? You can't know. We didn't do win probabilities in hockey in 1999, if we even do now. Expected goals or any of that stuff. The Sabres were never sort of likely to win. They just were close and could have. So I don't pick that game. Certainly as close as they've ever gotten. It's a perfectly reasonable choice. I pick a game 2 years after that with the Penguins. Game 7, caller makes a great point. Again, I mentioned it. the series aspect, you could pick Game 6 with Lemieux. But I was at Game 7 against Pittsburgh, and I was really into that team. It was 99-01 for me was 99. I'm in Rochester, and the Sabres are playing the Leafs in the conference finals, and I was equally a fan of both teams. 2001, I'm working here. I'm going to Sabres games. The Sabres are my job, sort of, and like sort of my life now. And then sort of the nostalgia comes back, and that team, and I got to know some of the players. Like, I got caught up in that team. The Pekka drama was a big controversial topic all the time. I was caught up in that team. I was not caught up in the 99 team. Just me. It was sort of like over there. And then now it's the finals, and I'm, all right, cool. That's kind of what 99 was for me. 01, though, was like day to day. My first year back on the air in Buffalo. And that Penguin series, the seventh game, that's the game I can't stop. That's the Sabres game I can't stop reliving. And I don't know all the details anymore, but 2-1 up in the third, I want to say, at least 2-2 in the third. I mean, just a great back and forth game. And I've got Dominik Hasek. That was a series where I want to say I thought they would win when it started. They got down 0-2 at home and then caught up and went ahead. The Barnes goal in Game 5. And they're up late in Game 6. And they're up in Game 7. And it just was like, they'll win, right? The Dallas, that's the opposite of the Dallas series. The Dallas series was, please. The Penguin series, like, they'll win, right? And I still remember, I guess I want to look everything up nowadays because I question myself about everything. It's been so many years. But I feel like I still remember that the Sabres went 4-0 that season against Jersey. And Jersey got the winner. And, Hasek and Brodeur, they were good. And there was always the possibility of Pekka, I guess, but still, like, even without him, the team was really good. Wrecked Philadelphia in the first round, had it, like, just so had it. What's Carolina then? Is Carolina that they had it, or is it more the Dallas example? Which is, Carolina, I think, is more, I know it is. Carolina is for me more like the Dallas case than the Pittsburgh case, where it's like, I could win, but I guess I can't say, I don't remember anymore if it's never. I know I had a hard time accepting the Sabres as like the better team in that series. That one stretch of Game 3, I hope you don't mind me going into this sort of Sabre land for a minute. That one stretch of Game 3, they looked like they were the best team of all time. But even in that game, Carolina got within one, and the next night they won easily. And Game 5, they won that. Game 6 was even. Like, the Sabres were never, again, I'm using never, but like it was, as I remember it, not like we should win. Dallas definitely wasn't we should win. Pittsburgh, for me, was. And they had Lemieux and Jágr. So maybe that's a little bit rich. But that series in 01 for me is like we should win. And sadly, there's nothing at all even remotely close since. Unless you, like 07 maybe, with Ottawa. But I wouldn't say it about Ottawa. We should win. Because it didn't feel like that anymore at that point. It didn't feel like we should win. It felt like we could. And this is maybe going to end badly. But I don't remember feeling, that confident. The 01 example is the one. And, you go back farther, it's hard for me to even, like, remember how I felt before, during, and anything prior to, I don't know, like 99, 98, 99. Maybe 98 Washington, I might have thought we should win. But that didn't prove right. I mean, they were not, like, they hung... The Washington series in 98, remember if you go back that far, remember the fifth game in that series in Washington, the Sabres are down, I think, 3-1, and they're just getting run over by the Capitals, but they win. I think it's Woolley, again, a late goal, and they win and come back for 6 and then lose in 6. But 2001, that I think, that's the one that got away. You're one goal from the semis with Dom. Instead, Kasperitis, and he skates off, and it's goodbye. And it's kind of goodbye to the whole thing. the whole few years, the whole window. The window slammed shut when he skated off after that goal. Okay, Enough for me. Mike is next. Mike, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, I was just trying to think of what you were talking about with Pittsburgh in that series, and wasn't that the same series where Kasparaitis threw the puck over the glass?
Yeah, right. Late in Game 7.
And then was that the Mario scored the goal where the puck plopped in the air and came down by his feet with Roy Fitzpatrick and put it in?
Yep.
Yeah, horrible. Just trying to help you out. I don't want to relive any bad memories, but yeah. So.
It's okay. Yeah, no, that you got it. That's what that was. Thanks, Mike. Patrick is next. Hi, Patrick. Patrick left. Well, Mike said it all. Patrick didn't need. There was nothing left to say after that one. Games that you'll not stop reliving. Those are a couple. Games that we haven't lived yet. The NFL season opener for 2025. 1 week from tonight, Dallas, Philadelphia. We'll get back into football here hard. Sal will join us at 4. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. sort of being at the end of the preseason, and which I like to do with him and did one other time this offseason, checking back on rookies and resetting expectations. There's always so much to talk about in that realm. That's the plan for later. Right now, back to your calls at 803-0550. We have Justin next. Hi, Justin.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Justin in Atlanta. My brother Darian used to work for the station. I think that you guys knew him way back in the day.
Okay. I never met him, but I certainly know who you mean.
Sure. Now, I moved to Atlanta from Buffalo in 95, and he hooked us up with tickets to games 1 and 2 in Washington. I thought for sure after game 1 that the Sabres had a chance in that series, but those were dashed after game 2. It was clear which way that was going to go. I flew back home in 99 for game 4 of the Dallas series, but I agree that was a please, James Brown, please series. You never really believed that was going to happen. 0-1 with Pittsburgh, not only did Kasparaitis, if I recall correctly, throw the puck over, score the Game 7 goal, but he also took someone out. I can't remember. It was a dirty hit, and he took someone out of the series, and it was a changing point in that 0-1 series. I think the Sabres had a shot there.
Okay.
Where I disagree is in 06. I actually drove up to Raleigh from Atlanta for Game 1 of that Carolina series. I thought the Sabres should have won that series. And so it's just interesting how people see things differently, how you remember it differently as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'll close with this. Recently listened to Craig Custance' book called Behind the Bench. Really good for hockey nerds. He's got a chapter about Ken Hitchcock. I can't bring myself to listen to that chapter because no goal is no goal. I listen to you guys all the time. Love it. I'll hang up.
Thanks, Justin. Darian Chapman, the late Darian Chapman, I'm sure is who he was referring to. I mentioned being on with Joe Ostrowski and Sam Panayotovich today, Bet Sweats. On or off the air, we talked around the segment too. Joe asked me about the Netflix documentary about the 90s Cowboys, America's team. I love a sports documentary. Like, I'll watch, when the 30 for 30 series was hot, I just watched them all. Like, even random stories from whatever sport, track and field or something, stories I knew nothing about, I'd watch them all. If it's good, I'm going to like it. I'm not watching the America's Team documentary on the 90s Cowboys. I want no part of it. Never. Just no interest. I don't want to relive that. Speaking of reliving sporting events, I'm not sure I'm going to want to relive when it's over this hat contest. But you can vote. Not, no sway from me here. I've got a hat up against one of Zach's hats. Another golf hat?
It is another golf hat, yep. I wanted to go for the clean looks. I did not know we were going to be all the sports stuff. Now I want to kind of take it back, but we're here.
This is a very different matchup. Your golf hat, your pink golf hat versus my giant toque.
Yeah, this definitely tells a story where you vote. How you vote tells me who you are as a person.
Yeah, I guess. We talked about this yesterday. Good idea by the guys here to put a hat contest. Everybody submitted 2 hats. This is one of my 2. Well, again, I don't want to bias the vote. I'll stop talking. I'll stop talking about these hats for now. When it's over, maybe. UB, the season opener tonight at Minnesota. Nice. They're like a 9-point underdog. 9.5, I think I saw. This would have been in Indiana because you can't find it on your phone. You can't bet New York State teams, weirdly, on your phone in New York. UB at Minnesota, so they're not a huge dog here for the season opener against, are they still Big Ten? I want to say, hopefully they
are still the Big Ten.
Wow.
Yes.
Got to admire that. They're actually a team that stays in a conference. They've probably been in the Big Ten for how long? A century? How long has the Big Ten been around? The very early days of college football, Minnesota, maybe, that would have been a team. I don't know. FS1 for the TV broadcast, the Bet 1520 has the UB opener, 8 o'clock Eastern tonight. Sal Capaccio after sports. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Closed-door practice today for the Bills, so no notes on that. But we did get the unveiling of the 2025 Arrival jerseys, which the Bills, along with the rest of the AFC East and the NFC West, will be taking part in this year. The Bills are calling theirs the Cold Front jerseys. They'll be wearing them at home against New England Week 5, October 5th. We have more on that up at our website, WGR550.com. And then some roster news for the Bills today. The team has officially announced they have signed cornerback Jalen Kimber and edge Andre Jones Jr. to the practice squad. To do that, they've released cornerback Daquan Hardy. And then earlier this afternoon, Jordan Schultz is reporting the Bills are working out 3 kickers: Eddie Pinheiro, Zane Gonzalez, and Greg Joseph. We'll get more on the Bills. Sal Capaccio will join the show next. A little bit of an update on Micah Parsons, courtesy of Adam Schefter. He is reporting the Cowboys appear to be listening for the first time to trade offers as the contract standoff continues. Schefter did go on to further report the Cowboys do want to resolve the matter before their Week 1 opener, which is exactly a week from today when they take on the Eagles to kick off the season. Week 1 of college football begins tonight. UB is in action. National televised game at Minnesota over on FS1. Kickoff at 8. You can also listen to that game over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And then some other notable games. The first one gets going in just about an hour and a half, 5:30. Number 25, Boise State at South Florida. And then a neutral site game at 9 o'clock with Nebraska taking on Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. And then in baseball, Bison's on the road versus Indianapolis, 6:35 start time. And with the UB game going on around the same time, you can listen to the Bisons over on 107.7 and 104.7 The Wolf, while the Yankees, they are in Chicago to take on the White Sox just after 7:40. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Let me think. Judgment. The practice was closed to the media. We're still in the preseason, technically. We're pre-season, at least. We got a couple of practice squad transactions. We've got kickers. Nope. Nothing that... Sal, let's talk about your draft. Let's just start there. Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Sorry. Nothing for me. Gosh. Nothing for me comes in above that. How'd it go?
I went well. First draft last night. Have another one tonight with my media colleagues. It's our Buffalo Media Draft we do every year, and there's literally like 2 leagues. It's kind of a National League, American League type scenario, right? Because there's so many people who cover the Bills that we all kind of got together several years ago, and this started. And tonight's another one there. So last night went well. That's my buddies down in Florida that I've been in the league with. It's actually, I really love the backstory of this league, though, more than the league itself sometimes. I started this league in 1997, and I was in Florida and we were in this is before like internet and doing all the stuff like that. So you're doing it by hand. I'm posting it. I was a bartender at a sports bar. I'd be posting the standings and scores out of the back in the dartboard room. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then it just evolved. And then years and years later, I moved to Buffalo. Obviously, it was just too hard. But somebody else took over the league, and it's the same league, and it's awesome. And that's what I think I love about fantasy football too, Mike, is it's not just the act of playing, it's being with your friends and doing it for so long. This league now is going on. It's been 25 years, it's almost 30 years. This league's been going. It's cool. Love that.
That resonates with me. I did a league that I started in 1988 in high school. Yes. And I know some of those guys, and some of them just started up a new league, or their brothers, like family, people connected to that group of friends that I'm a part of. That feels good, that's something that goes back. Just being so excited to draft Neil Anderson, Sal, in 1988. I mean, very few picks have I made that were better.
We have I did the same thing. I think 89 was our first year. My first year I started one, and it was called the Cleveland Hill Fantasy Football League, CHFFL. And we still make fun of one of our friends, or we did, I should say. Unfortunately, he passed on a few years ago. But he 1 year drafted John Settle as the first pick overall.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember John
Sure.
Settle.
Atlanta.
And we're like, yeah, and like, great, he was the first pick overall. But back then it's so funny. Like we had kickers going to the first round because they had scored the most points, quote unquote, right? So people took them in the first round. It was kind of wild. So that was cool. Last night was great. They're mostly down there. I'm remote, and I had the 8th pick overall. And thanks to you and me, working it out with me, I had my choice, and I chose there because I was guaranteed to get 2 of a certain group of guys. And I did. I started off with Malik Neighbors and Trey McBride. It's a tight end premium league, so I like the way I started.
Oh, me too. Man, that end of the first round is rich, and those are key names in that. Don't forget February Fix, Sal. You've been in that league for the whole 9 years, I believe.
I think we have. My buddy Chris, who won this league. He's the only other guy in Buffalo in this league with me. He actually won it last year. He is my partner, and I have to go back and look at my team, Mike. I have no idea because it's best.
I'm looking at it right now.
Kind of set it and forget it, right?
I'm looking at it right now. You could use Nick Chubb and or Amari Cooper to have a renaissance season.
Ooh.
That would be good. But you have Ibuka. He's exciting.
I think I got good receivers in that league.
Yeah, you take a look. Amuka, Jaden Reed, Sutton.
Okay.
We'll see. Let me just transition into the real football with Amari Cooper here. Like he goes to Vegas so quiet all offseason, never heard a word about him. Then it's a 1 year, $3.5 million deal maybe with Vegas. I get this question. You would be more qualified to answer it. Is there anything left?
I thought he was okay at times last year. I just think that, for a full season, I'm not sure. You'll probably get a pop-off game or 2 from him at some point. I mean, quarterback matters here, and he had Josh Allen here. And remember, he came to Buffalo, he got hurt right away, right? He hurt his wrist, I believe it was, right away. And that kind of really set him back a little bit as well. But I think, sure, I think the way this guy prepares, I think the way that he keeps his body, he's so professional. He really is. Getting to know him a little bit for, a month and a half, 2 months, whatever it was that he was in Buffalo, since the trade deadline, I think he can still play in the league. You're going to get a pop-off game maybe once in a while. He's got to get the targets, but I don't know if over a 17-game season if he's going to resonate that much, especially for a team that probably isn't going to be that good.
Right. Just turned 31 in June, Amari Cooper signing with the Raiders. While we're here quickly, do you have a thought on Rasul Douglas going to Miami? Just so interesting and ironic that Douglas, who was like a playmaker last year on a team that had 32 takeaways, third in the league, they did not get 1 interception from him.
I think that's really interesting. He clearly was not the same player last year as he was the year before, which is weird because it's only a few months separating the offseason, right? You took 6 months later, and he just wasn't making the same kind of plays. And I think what I kind of gather about what the Bills' intention was this offseason was that they needed somebody a little bit more twitchy, a little bit more athletic. Now, look, you could say, well, wait a minute, Tre'Davious White's coming off all those injuries. I think if you think Tre'Davious White's going to be healthy enough, he is more that than Rasul Douglas at that point last year. You kind of have to figure out where they're going to be over the next, several months for that. But he just wasn't the same kind of ball-breaking guy, breaking on the ball, twitchiness that he was when he first showed up in Buffalo. And maybe he had a couple injuries. Remember, he did get injured late in the playoffs, in the playoffs the year before that. When you get older, those things start to linger a little bit. Was that a part of it? I'm not sure. But I really appreciate Rasul Douglas for the way that his relationship with the DBs. He came in as a veteran, and really him and Christian Benford have such a strong relationship. That was great. And Mike, I will tell you, just behind the scenes type stuff and a peek behind the curtain, there was not a game where home games, I say mostly the home games because away you have to leave and get on the bus. There was not a home game where Rasul Douglas wasn't one of the last guys left in the locker room and just hanging out with other guys and talking to them about game and football. And I just think that matters, when you have a guy like that in your locker room. So I wish him well in Miami. I just don't really know what they have on defense and how much, if you're relying on Rasul Douglas to be a really big player for the Miami Dolphins, I don't know if that's going to go well.
It might be a little bit like relying on Jordan Poyer here, right, who was with the Dolphins last year. Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. So I know Tyler Bass missed much of the summer. He returned for the final preseason game why, other than maybe obvious reasons, would the Bills be working out kickers? Is this something they might just normally do, or is it a bad sign for Bass or his health?
You could definitely look at as, and I wouldn't say bad sign, but concerning, like, hey, they want to really make sure that he's okay. And we don't know of anything that happened to him other than him being at practice and he was fine from what I've seen. So I don't think there's anything there unless something happened over the last 24 hours. I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to say that that's probably not the case. It is something they normally do. And this is something, it's a great thing that this happened just a little while ago and you could ask me about this, because this is something I love to remind people of all the time. The Bills and every other team, they bring people in at different positions at various times, especially early in the year, because if case something does happen to somebody, you have another guy in the ready that you just saw, you just worked out. You can call him right up and say, hey, we know this guy's ready to rock and roll. Let's go. It's better than something happens. You got to call a guy, get into Buffalo, see what he's all about, go through that process. If you have that dossier on him right away, you've gone through that. If something happens, you can call right upon him. And it would make sense with Tyler Bass with his injury. This year he missed some time. Hey, let's get some kickers in now. Let's just make sure, we go through week one. If Tyler's not right, we might have to call on somebody. But it doesn't mean that they don't think he's not right.
Interesting, these kickers, they're not nobodies. I mean, these are guys that have kicked in the NFL. Eddie Pinheiro, Zane Gonzalez, Greg Joseph. Like, they've all had careers already. I wonder what their calculus is, Sal. Like, if the Bills could do this, a lot of teams, most teams could do the same thing. Maybe they just bounce from station to station, sort of working out. I might do it, and I probably think that I should if I'm one of these players, but I'd also think, like, I've got a resume. You could look me up. I kicked in the NFL last year and did this. And if you needed somebody in November, I'm probably the same kicker. So, I mean, they'll make the trip because that's the impression you want to make, and maybe they think they're trying out for a job, like, more imminently. But otherwise, what are you really trying to figure out that you shouldn't know already? I guess I would put it that way.
Let me ask you this. Would you think, I'll ask you, because I keep thinking about this, is it possible that with the new kicking rules and Tyler Bass having this recent injury that, he's back from, but having to maybe kick it a little bit differently on kickoffs now and not wanting to put all that on him, that they say, let's bring in a guy, we can put him on the practice squad, we can elevate him and just have him do kickoffs. Is that a possibility, I wonder?
Sure.
There was a time where, and I think teams every once in a while still do this, where they have a kickoff specialist. That's kind of gone away. The Bills don't do that. But you might actually think about that now, Mike, right? Which is, hey, maybe there's a guy that is better at that particular skill than the guy we have, but our guy is still the field goal guy and the extra point guy, but maybe we want something a little different on kickoffs. I just think that could be a possibility.
Yes, I should ask you, and I should maybe know this already, but I missed the end of the week and the game. What is the latest with Bass? Like, so is it everything that was keeping him off the field behind him as far as we know? How did Saturday go? Like, is there any sort of, what's the new conclusion on him, basically, the new status?
I think the conclusion was he's fine because he made 5 kicks and then he missed a really short field goal. And for whatever reason, he missed that because he kicked a 39, a 37, and a 37-yarder, and he made 2 extra points before that. Like, the 5 kicks, all good kicks, went in, and then he missed a really short, like 29 or 34-yarder. I can't remember which one it was, maybe 34, but he missed that one, which is kind of odd. But it didn't seem like there's anything wrong with him, and he kicked off. Every time the Bills scored, he kicked off. So I don't think there's any conclusion other than Tyler Bass is fine. Then we went out to practice the other day, and he was out there and he was kicking. If there's anything wrong with him, it would have been something that is lingering that we don't know of or something that happened over the last 24 hours.
Have you talked to him about the kickoff rule changes?
No, and what's funny is I wanted to talk to him after the game on Saturday. Here's how it works. We can't really, in the media, we don't talk to guys who are injured. Like, it's just kind of a rule, right? You don't talk to guys who are injured. Maybe it's because the team doesn't want them to revealing anything about their injuries. But if a guy is practicing, he's fair game. You can talk to him or playing in a game. If he's injured and he's not practicing, he's not playing, he does not talk to the media. So, we respect those rules and we don't do that. He kicked on Saturday, and actually I'll say Lance Lysowski, who's now the beat reporter for the Buffalo News, who was with the Sabres. Now he's covering the Sabres, I should say. Now he's covering the Bills. Him and I both, after the game, were looking around the locker room going, hey, where's Tyler Bass? And we both said, hey, let's go find him. And there was an extra kind of room off to the side. The locker room was a little weird in Tampa, the visitors' locker room. There was this huge locker room. Then there was another kind of auxiliary locker room off in the back. And someone said, yeah, the specialists are over there. So Lance and I both walked over there, and by the time we got there, Tyler Bass was already gone. So a long way of answering your question of not talking to him, but I wanted to explain that, like, we wanted to talk to him, but just didn't get that chance.
I'm not suggesting the Bills would want to cut him or anything. I mean, he had a good bounce-back season. It's just to point out that he wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to do that cheaply. Like, he has a contract through 27. There's a $6 million dead cap number if the Bills, whether it's injury related or not. Like, just there's that aspect to this with him if they were even thinking about making a change there. Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. A couple of practice squad moves today. Hardy was cut. Anything of consequence there? I mean, it's, again, the practice squad.
No. By the way, I'm looking at over the cap. They would save 3.6 by releasing Tyler Bass now, and it would only cost them $1 million in dead money.
Okay.
This year and next year.
All right.
However, I have seen no indication that, like, I mean, here's what tells me that I would be stunned if they did that, Mike. Even when he was hurt for 3 weeks, they didn't bring another kicker in until late, like the last week, and then that other guy kicked, and I can't remember his name right now, Caden Davis. Like, they didn't bring Caden Davis in. Like, they had nobody kicking at practice for 2.5 weeks. It's like, it didn't really matter, right? And then he finally did. So, anyway, that's why I'd be stunned. I just wanted to get the money right on that. Daquan Hardy, I'm a little surprised because I really thought that was a guy that they felt maybe at some point could challenge for a return job who could give you more on defense than Brandon Codrington. Because I really like kind of sometimes what I see from Daquan Hardy on defense. He plays outside. He plays inside. When he was drafted, people thought he'd be only strictly a slot guy. They've used him on the outside as well, and not too bad, actually. But he did have an injury during camp, and then he came back. And, you know, if they feel they're set in the secondary, then, you know, maybe that's just a guy that they feel they need something else. Now, here it also could be just numbers because they brought in another defensive back, and they brought in a defensive end. And what I mean by that is it's a one-for-one defensive back. So why is that? It could very well be that the other defensive back they brought in, Jalen Kimber, could just be a guy that maybe is a replica of something they want to have against Baltimore to practice. Like, is he someone that, hey, this guy he's, you know, I don't know, like, for example, he's like Marlon Humphrey. So we're going to put him against the offense so they can get a better look because he's got the size and the build and plays like him. And when you do that, you got to get rid of somebody. And then maybe the next week you get Daquan Hardy back on the practice squad, right? It's just a numbers game that happens sometimes this time of year.
Right. Khalil Shakir, wheels up?
I think so. You could tell he wasn't 100% yesterday, but he's back on the field, and that's a good sign. They're not going to put him out there and put him in harm's way. So they obviously feel that he's good enough to at least go out there and start doing some things. You know, Khalil's a vet when it comes to answering questions because I said, you know, hey, you know, what do you think about being on track for week one? And these guys generally don't give you like any. They're not going to tell you yes or no because. But of course he's like, I'm just taking it a day at a time, right? And we'll see where it goes from here. So I tried to get him there. He didn't work out, but he's a tough guy, and he is a guy that takes a lot of pride in, you know, being available and doing everything right to make sure that can happen. So he said he learned a lot from last year's ankle injury. It's the same injury, ironically, happened against Baltimore. He missed the Baltimore game last year. Oh, no, I'm sorry, happened against Baltimore last year, and now they're playing Baltimore. So I think it's trending well for Khalil Shakir. We still have, 10, 11 days here before the first game.
No, he wasn't forthcoming, and as you know as well as anyone, players and coaches often are not. But we did have Sean McDermott a couple of weeks back report that he was told he thought Shakir should be ready for the opener. And that was a little more than you might have expected him to say about that at the time. Once he said that, I felt, I'm in there drafting. I feel like there's really no particular risk of Shakir missing time. But we will see. So what do you think of the new uniforms?
I like them. I've always liked like clean, slick kind of uniforms like that. I guess that's the word to use. I don't know. Clean uniforms, meaning like not really busy. Like I've always kind of liked the Penn State uniforms when they wear all white or black, and the blue and the white, I should say, and the white and the blue. But either way, you get my point. Like it's just kind of the uniform. And when it's not too busy going on, it doesn't mean that I don't think you can have a really snazzy, Oregon Ducks neon uniform. Okay, that can kind of look cool. But I've always been kind of a little old school with, that's just straight football, let's go uniform. It reminds me of that. It also reminds me a lot of the UB Bulls white uniforms, and I really like the UB Bulls white uniforms, to be quite honest. So I like that. the detail in it is pretty amazing. When you look at the buffalo on the shoulder and the raised buffalo there, and I know there's certain reasons why they did that. It's very cool. I think they kind of hit pretty cleanly. I think it represents a lot of what we're about here, Buffalo, right? It's the snow and the ice is what it's trying to replicate a little bit there, and you even have the condensation during the video coming off the shoulders and things like that. So I think not only, Mike, do I like the uniforms and think they fit and they're clean, I think they did a good job to present them actually on social media.
I was assuming that the Bills and the Patriots would wear their uniforms on the same night in Week 5. Am I wrong? Somebody on Twitter told me the Patriots won't be wearing theirs that night. And every time I search for New England, I don't see a date.
Oh, the Patriots uniforms?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you asked when. Okay, first of all, let's straighten a couple things out so people know, because I've gotten this a lot today. Only one team will wear a rivalry uniform in any game.
Okay, that's what I was wrong about. Okay.
So the Patriots are wearing theirs Week 11 against the Jets.
There it is. Okay. Yep. The listener was right. I was wrong.
I tweeted out a graphic that someone had sent me, my friend Mike, who you know as well, by the way. He had sent me this, and so I tweeted it out as well. What's really interesting, though, is the Bills, in a game where a rivalry uniform is being worn, whether it's by the Bills or not, they only are one time. That's when they are wearing it against the Patriots on October 5th. However, like, the Jets are involved in 3 of these games. The Dolphins are wearing it against the Jets, the Patriots are wearing it against the Jets, and the Jets are wearing it against the Dolphins. And the Seahawks are involved in 4 of them. Every time the Seahawks go on the road for a division game, their opponent is wearing their rivalry uniforms, and then the Seahawks are wearing it themselves against the Rams.
Okay. I guess to be a stickler, would prefer that the Bills wear this uniform when it should be cold, because that's exactly what it's evoking. And likely it won't be on October 5th. I mean, the 50s is a normal October 5th.
Well, I think that I guess you could have said Thursday night against the Dolphins would have been even sooner.
Yep.
But you kind of have to go by the schedule. The only other time would have been the Jets, and that game we know is going to be the throwback uniform that they're going to be wearing, the red helmet. Well, we know that.
Week
That's
18.
The late game. So really, you only had 2 other choices, and both were September games. And obviously, it's a Sunday night game. It's national TV. It just resonates. It just hits, right? That's why you wear it. Why would the NFL also not have both teams wear these uniforms in the same game? Now, I don't know this, but my guess is, A, they want to highlight one team, highlight it and show it off. Not like a color rush where it's both teams doing it. But the other part of it is, Mike, it could be because they just didn't want it to clash. Like, what if both teams have a white, Nike rivalry uniform? And you're like, well, wait a minute. We can't do that,
Right. When I was assuming they would be together, I made a point about white helmets versus white helmets and Joe Ferguson, but that was also wrong, because the Patriots will have their silver helmets, their normal helmets for that game. I have long wanted one of these versions of throwback uniforms to go back to 1960, because I think it's a little known fact that the Bills started in blue and silver for 2 years, maybe 1 year, I guess. 1960 was maybe it. 2 at the most, I think 1. And so they've never done that, and their throwbacks have looked very, relatively similar to their regular uniforms. So I was ready for this.
Yeah, I think that the Bills having a couple different uniforms this year that they're wearing just once is pretty cool, and I know that the fans kind of want them to wear these things more. The red helmets wear them more. It's also one of those things where you can oversaturate something, right? So what is the right amount of times to do these things? It's the rivalry uniforms 1 time, it's the red helmet 1 time, and the Standing Buffaloes twice this year. Now, the Standing Buffalo is going to be at home against the Bucks, but the Bucks are not wearing their creamsicles that day, just so everybody knows, here in Buffalo, November 16th. And the Standing Buffalo is going to be being worn Monday night at the Falcons, and the Falcons are doing their throwbacks and wearing their old, I guess it'd be red helmet.
Yes, which is really cool.
Yeah. Who do you think of when you see that red helmet?
John Settle, after today.
That's great. I love that.
No, William Andrews.
Ooh, Steve Bartkowski for me.
Same team, 1980. I was into them, just finding my way as a sports fan, and I liked a few teams. Atlanta was one of them, and that uniforms probably had more to do with that than I even knew. Right? I mean, this is sharp. Gray pants, red helmets, white jerseys. Works. Then they went to all black with Glanville, and no, thank you. All right, is tomorrow a practice day, or are we into the holiday weekend, or what?
there's no media tomorrow that I am aware of.
Okay.
So they might be doing something as a team, but there's no media. Really, next week ramps that up. And I think there's some stuff in the CBA about how much time they need off and those kinds of things leading up, because next week it'll be like a regular practice week, and we'll be out there and getting things going.
Practice Monday, off Tuesday, like that next week.
That's actually to be determined, because it is week 1, Mike, but normally that is the case on a Sunday game. Yes. Yep. So you're right to assume it that way, but because it is week 1 and the schedules are a little bit different with how they lead into it, it might be a little bit different next week.
Very good. Thanks for your time.
You got it.
Sal Capaccio on the Wester Hotline. His appearances on WGR brought to you by New York's only outlet liquor. Your place to buy a case, Outlet Liquor. What's your outlet? Talked about a lot of things, including Sal's draft. Forgive me. Not about games that you relive as a sports fan. Had a listener tweet at me about why is it always the case that they're losses? I don't know. Is it necessarily? Like, do you relive wins? Sure. In the context of Buffalo not having a major championship, though, the ones, this is just my nature, I guess, the ones that come to mind are the close losses, the heartbreaks. But, I've watched some of these famous Bills playoff wins maybe as often as anybody, going back, not the more recent ones, but back to the 90s at least. 803-0550 for your thoughts. The uniforms, games, good or bad, that you cannot stop reliving. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, oh, sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life.
Closed door practice today for the Bills, so no notes from today, but we did get the unveiling of the 2025 Rivals jersey, which the Bills, along with the AFC East and the NFC West, will be taking part in. The Bills are calling theirs the Cold Front jerseys, and they'll be wearing them at home against New England Week 5, October 5th. For more on the jerseys, you do have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. We also have some roster notes for the Bills. The team is signing cornerback Jalen Kimber and edge Andre Jones Jr. to the practice squad. To do that, they are releasing cornerback Daquan Hardy. And then a report from Jordan Schultz has the Bills working out 3 kickers, Eddie Pinheiro, Zane Gonzalez, and Greg Joseph. A little bit of a Micah Parsons update, courtesy of Adam Schefter. He is reporting the Cowboys appear to be, for the first time, listening to trade offers as the contract standoff continues. Schefter did go on to further report the Cowboys do want to resolve this matter before the opener, which is 1 week from today. Week 1 of college football begins tonight. UB is in action on national television at Minnesota over on FS1. Kickoff is at 8. You can listen to that game over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. And then in baseball, the Bisons on the road versus Indianapolis, 6:30 start time, and with the UB game going on around the same time, you can listen to the Bisons over on 107.7 and 104.7 The Wolf, while the Yankees, they are in Chicago to take on the White Sox just after 7:40. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome back. Thanks for listening. Lots to talk about. NFL season 1 week away. What's on your mind about it? 803-0550 to tell me. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today and tomorrow. Joe Ostrowski was unable to join today, but will be with us weekly on Thursdays starting next week. And Sam Panayotovich has been, as he's been with us throughout the entire year, will join me tomorrow. I haven't talked to Sam on this show in like a month. Just a couple of Fridays off. He was sick. I was on his show with Joe this morning. Maybe you caught it. You can watch them on YouTube, and they also are doing, so it's 9 to noon Eastern. They've also been doing 10 to 11 on Twitter live, which I've been sort of getting in the habit of listening to their show through that. That's how you do it, right? I mean, it wasn't something I was always thinking about, but then I'm on Twitter and there's Joe or there's Sam, and now I started going to find it outside of that 1 hour. I was on at 11 today, just talking about the Bills season, some fantasy stuff. It's so funny to me. I mean, the fantasy thing has become an absolute obsession of mine, and not necessarily a healthy one. I spend a lot of money on it and a lot of my time that probably, definitely could go into other interests and other responsibilities. But talking to those guys, they are just like blown away by the volume. And Joe said maybe he's in 1 league. And Sam is in 2, he said, but he'd like to be in only 1. He's hoping one of his leagues folds. He was in 3 until recently, and one of the leagues folded, and he was happy about it. He's just like, enough. So like he mentioned something about people thinking it was rigged, and just like it didn't sound good. So they're just, here are 2 guys who are tops in their field as handicappers, if that's the right word, it might not be, but also like they're broadcasters. I mean, they're analysts about betting. Like, you can't put anything past them when it comes to that. You listen to Sam with us on Fridays. Like, he knows all the different books or shops, as he'll call them, and he knows people at all these different places. He's got all kinds of different connections and tons of experience, all different sports, and he's just all over it. I watched their 11 o'clock hour today after I was off, and they're talking about Boise State, one of the Floridas tonight.
South Florida.
Thank you. South Florida tonight. And Nebraska versus Cincinnati at Arrowhead, which is not quite, by the way, right between those 2 locations. Not that it has to be. It is between them, but I've been to all places. Like, Lincoln is 3-4 hours from Kansas City. Who cares about this? And Cincinnati is like 8. maybe. Anyway, they're talking about these games and what the lines tell you and all the different aspects of it. And I can understand the language, but I'm nowhere close to being as on top of it. And their producer, whose name is Paul, kind of runs this one college football segment they were doing, talking about how he bet this South Florida game like months ago. And wow, like, I've done that for NFL games. I guess so. And then, I'm not at all criticizing them for this, just sort of interesting to me. Then Joe and Sam had a conversation on air about me and about fantasy. That's where they talked about how many leagues they were in and how few leagues they were in and everything else. And they're both like, how do you do it? And I was just texting with Sam about it. Like, look, it's no different than your thing. I mean, for you, it's more like your job. It is sort of half my job, but it's really the same thing. It's this is the excuse, I guess. The feeling that you have an edge because of what you know, how much you play, being able to predict other people in the room, just like poker. They're kind of all the same thing. And you're going to lose a lot. There's a lot of luck, and the NFL is very unpredictable. Injuries. Just yesterday morning, I drafted with Pete Overzet on his stream in Best Ball Mania 6 underdog, Jaden Reed of the Packers. And he had been sidelined during camp, but Pete said he loves Jaden Reed. And I'm like, can one of these years Green Bay just sort of downshift and they're paying Jordan Love like he's great? You're drafting Matthew Golden in the first round. Reed's really good. Come on. They play conservatively. Their defense has been good, so that helps that. But let's see it, Packers. You want to, win it? Or do you just want to be okay? Like, let's see it. So we're talking about Jaden Reed. Then later in the day, it came out that he was practicing. Like, oh, great timing. Took somewhat of a risk in the morning on a guy who wasn't known to be 100%. Now he's on the field. Bang. Today he's got a broken foot. Like, he wants to play through it. Nothing's really changed, I guess, but there's just more out there about him. He wants to play through this foot injury he's got. And no way would I have drafted him yesterday had I known this today. Like, just no way. That's life on the wire. That happens. And it's the same as betting. It's just in a different form where you're betting on players and combinations and just different things. I told Sam, because I'm hoping to get in with them a little bit more often talking about this stuff, but they don't do a lot of fantasy on their show. I'm like, it's very much adjacent to prop bets. In fact, if I have the time for this, and it's so many lineups that I usually just don't, but I should find the time for it, I will check, like on a night game I will, every week. Every night game I'll do this, at least. I'll check the prop lines and then plan lineups accordingly. Like, oh, well, I liked Stephon Diggs in this game, but maybe they have a corner I wasn't thinking about. Maybe it's going to be windy and I wasn't thinking about that. There might be more information. And if you go to his prop line and his receiving yards is like 54.5 yards or something like that, like, well, maybe it's not as good a play as I thought. So building a lineup is very much adjacent to just like betting the props. I'm like, Sam, it's really the same thing. You guys bet games. Here's a guy, and I don't really want to overspeak, but here's a guy who will not bet a game on FanDuel, say, because it's 3.5, but he will bet it on MGM at 4. Like, he's that far, that he's that knowledgeable and dedicated to it that he's going to have all kinds of different apps and just sort of really try to beat the game as best as one can. And I respect that. And fantasy is really kind of the same thing. So the props tell you something. All the drafting you're doing, all the bets you're making will tell you something, and you just sort of try to make it work, I guess. Not exactly the same topic, but I wanted to share this. I had a dream last night. Closer maybe to a nightmare than a dream. Most of my dreams these days are not like, well, rainbows and unicorns. I'm falling out of a plane or something just like traumatic is happening to me. And I'm not somebody who just like sort of wakes up in a sweat or anything like that. Like I'll just sort of wake up and reset. At least I can still do that. But this was more of a funny one. I was at a Bills game with my dog and my laptop. Why would you have your dog at a Bills game? I don't know. That's a dream for you. I don't know why Margot would have been at the game. Why would I have my laptop at a game? That I would often do because I'm going there to work and I'll always have my computer. So in this, doesn't matter, in this dream, I've got my laptop and I've got Margot. And they're two separate sort of traumatic events. The dog would be always running away. And I'd have to get up and go find her. And I always did find her, at least. So at least it didn't end with just her being lost. So there was that. That's not the interesting part. Maybe this isn't either. The interesting part is somehow, like I'm sitting here talking to you with my laptop in front of me, just like I would have been in this dream at a Bills game. And I'll call up this, I work off of a Microsoft Word document. It's what's up on my screen right now. And say I click in the dream, I click on the Microsoft Word document and the document shows up on the scoreboard. Basically, I had control of the scoreboard with my laptop. And I am just like frantically trying to, I realize it, and I'm frantically trying to like minimize I've got 50 tabs and like here's Excel, here's my Spotify, email, and I can't find the little line at the top right or the X. I can't see it. It's too small. So the trauma or whatever, the bad part is I cannot get my browser off the scoreboard at the stadium. And, I don't want you to see that. I don't want you to see this. You're going to be reading whatever I'm writing for whatever my notes or whatever it is. Who knows? I couldn't tell you exactly what was on the screen, but thank goodness, perhaps. Yeah, so that was, I thought, kind of funny. My little laptop trauma. Trying and being unable to rectify the situation, therefore forcing a packed house for a Bills game to look at my information on the scoreboard. That's what that was. Could have been worse. Yeah, could have been worse. Chris Trapasso will join me at 5. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. Welcome back. I'm looking forward to chatting with Chris Trapasso today, coming up just after 5, so in a little over 10 minutes. The top Bills story of the day, I suppose, is the dream I had. No, the top story of the day, I suppose, is the uniform release, and I'm in. I've been talking about how I was hoping for a long time the Bills would eventually come out with a jersey that reflects their original jerseys, which were light blue and silver. And they've done that. And I mean, it's a white uniform, but those are your colors. I'm not sure there's any red on this thing. Maybe. I didn't get a microscope out, but it's white, light blue, and silver. And that's the uniform they debuted in 1960. So I eventually kind of gave up not finding a gem. What I love to do is dive into the reference sites, Pro Football Reference, Baseball Reference, whatever, and they seem to always take me to something interesting that I would not have known before and that I'd want to tell you about. This didn't quite happen for me. I don't know if you listening happen to know anything about the Bills' first season or very much about it, but I started to start perusing, and there's a player whose name I did not know, Bob Broadhead. I mean, the stats are not exactly, Bill James couldn't do much with this, I think. They're not exactly buttoned up. But on the Bills' 1960 page, they list the quarterbacks, and one of them is Bob Broadhead, who, according to the site, went 1-0 as a starter, and he's listed as a quarterback. He went 1-0 as a starter, and his stats for the season were 7 for 25 for 75 yards and 3 interceptions, with, by the way, for good measure, 6 sacks. 7 completions, 6 sacks, 3 picks. I mean, this guy struggled. The late Bob Broadhead. But then when I went looking, he's got a win here. Did he go 7 for 25? It's 1960, so maybe. Did he go 7 for 25 with 3 picks and 6 sacks and win the game? Not exactly. I can't really tell. The game that the Bills won, that he gets credit for, he didn't throw a pass. He was a running back. And the game where, maybe the one game where his name is first among the quarterbacks is the Bills' very first game at the Titans, who would become the Jets. And they lost. Kind of big. So, I don't know. I feel like I would have known it if Bob Broadhead was the Bills' first ever starting quarterback. The other quarterback in that game is Tommy O'Connell, whose name is familiar to me. But I don't really know which guy started that game, and it's kind of confusing. So, you don't get any play-by-play information or anything from those years. The leading rusher, by a lot, on that first Bills team is a man named Ray Carlton, who I know the morning guys mentioned a couple of weeks ago. And I had to find out, why again were you guys talking about Ray Carlton? When I heard that they'd done so, I took a picture of one of his cards and, tweeted about card of the day, that kind of thing, Ray Carlton. And so what they were doing on that particular day was running backs that James Cook can or should pass in his career as a Bill in terms of rushing yards. And that's a pretty long list. He's at 16th with 2,638. And he's got a contract now that could take him 4 more years here. And who knows if it's not going to end up being longer than that. But if he puts down, he's gone 1,000 yards back to back here. If he does that twice more, he'll be top 5 in career rushing yards for the Bills. Cribbs is 4 at 4,400. And actually Josh Allen is 4,100, and he'll be above Cribbs too. So you'd have, if the next 2 years go the way the last 2 have, Allen and Cook will be both top 5 in career rushing yards for the Bills. Allen is already first in touchdowns, 65 touchdowns, tied with Thurman. So it's always incredible to me. So that's why Ray Carlton's name came up that one day. He was 8th. He is 8th all time in rushing yards for the Bills with a, modest 3,368. Next, Chris Trapasso. Rather than talking about players from the past, we'll talk about the future, the draft picks, and not just the Bills, but the big ones around the league, their prospects for 2025 now that the preseason is over. Mike Schopp here. Thanks for listening. This is WGR.
Sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole. Oh,
Breaking news in the NFL moments ago. Adam Schefter tweeting out the Cowboys are trading All-Pro linebacker Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. We do not know the compensation going back to Dallas, but Schefter is reporting that the Packers have reached an agreement with Parsons on a 4-year, $188 million contract. So Parsons does leave the Cowboys. The standoff does lead to him getting traded. We'll keep you posted as more details emerge from that. But the breaking news in the NFL, Micah Parsons being traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Green Bay Packers. For the Bills, a closed practice for today. They did, though, unveil their 2025 arrival jerseys. They, along with the rest of the AFC East and the NFC West, will be taking part. And the Bills, they're calling theirs the cold front jerseys. They're going to be wearing them at home against New England Week 5, October 5th. For more on those jerseys, we do have a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. The Bills also had some roster moves they announced today having to do with the practice squad. The team has signed cornerback Jalen Kimber and edge Andre Jones Jr. to the practice squad. They have, to do that, released cornerback Daquan Hardy. Jordan Schultz also is reporting the Bills worked out 3 kickers, Eddie Pinheiro, Zane Gonzalez, and Greg Joseph. And then week 1 of college football does begin tonight. UB is in action on national television at Minnesota over on FS1. Kickoff is at 8, and you can listen to that game over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp.
We were having a very serious conversation about mayonnaise here.
And the Bulldog.
And don't even talk to me about weed.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Well, the Micah Parsons thing always felt like, and I think maybe to most fans, just like you're being dragged along unwillingly to this conclusion where Jerry Jones does the thing where he uses this supposed drama to talk about how actually drama is really good. I'm good at this. And then does the seemingly inevitable, which is pay Micah Parsons top dollar, and then we can all say, well, you could have got him a lot cheaper a year ago or whatever. But instead, he really is being traded to Green Bay. And there is a contract in place, 4 years, $188 million, up to, it's going to have to be. I looked 3 times to see if it really said Adam Schefter. Schefter did, unfortunately, call Parsons Micah Packers. And there's the jersey right there. He's, of course, wearing Green Bay jersey. We can't not have that in the world. We've got to actually pretend that he's already played a game for the Packers. Micah Packers. Rappaport called him Micah Parsons. Once I saw that, I knew it had to be right, because you get one fake insider at a time. When there's big news, they all have it simultaneously. So there it is. Chris Trapasso on the Wester Hotline. Can you believe it?
I cannot. I mean, how you just set that scene, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought there was from Lindsay Rhodes, who's part of Sumer Sports now, used to be on NFL Network. She tweeted last night that she thought, oh, this is going to be Jerry Jones signing Micah Parsons on the day of the Eagles game to take some of the shine away from the Eagles getting that first game of the regular season after winning the Super Bowl. That's what seemed most likely. They signed Dak Prescott right before the season. They signed CeeDee Lamb same way. Trevon Diggs a couple years ago as well. So this was one that seemed maybe the most obvious that they should have re-signed this player, and they ultimately didn't. We still don't know what the trade compensation, and we'll probably get that during this interview. It's probably going to be a doozy. It's probably going to be multiple firsts and then some. But you're right. I thought this was going to just be, yeah, all right, they're going to ultimately sign him. Why were we so concerned? But now we have a huge power shift, I think, in the NFC.
Everything like this that happens, or not like this, but just like moves, I'll end up coming to the realization or making the point that, well, this isn't going to move the betting markets. This will. I mean, this will move the betting markets. This will work for Green Bay. And I don't know, Chris, Dallas had some shine to it with Prescott and George Pickens being there now, and maybe, again, the assumption that Parsons would get done. But, damn, I mean, now he's gone. Maybe they'll get a player back in this. We don't know yet, like you said.
That's true. That's true.
Still, though, I mean, they open the season in Philadelphia next week, and his absence will be maybe the biggest talking point of the night.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a strong case. I know it's the Cowboys and the playoff failures are always going to stick out more than anything else with that organization. But there's a case that, like, Micah Parsons, the last 4 years since he's been in the NFL, has been, like, the most consistent three-down outside pass rusher in the NFL. I don't think it's slam dunk that he's definitely better than Myles Garrett or T.J. Watt, but he is absolutely in that conversation. He's dealt with some nagging injuries here and there, but he's mostly been very durable. He's awesome against the run, and he's just prolifically efficient as a pass rusher. So they lose DeMarcus Lawrence, who is kind of on his way down, but still a quality player, and Micah Parsons from their pass rush. I don't really know who's getting after the passer in Dallas on what has not been that good of a defense over the last couple of years.
What about Green Bay in this then? I mean, for now, we don't know if they're giving up any players, and are there any players that really would move the needle here? Ian Rappaport says at least 2 firsts are going to the Cowboys in this trade.
Wow.
What's your analysis of the Packers, the effect on Green Bay?
This is such a big need for them that this defense in Green Bay has kind of held it together the last couple of years, but it's really been Rashawn Gary, who's kind of like a sneaky elite outside pass rusher and no one else. They drafted Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa a few years ago. He's kind of like, I mean, to use a Bills comparison, he's kind of like an AJ Epinesa type, that he was an oversized edge rusher or an undersized defensive tackle, and he really has not played up to that first-round status. He's kind of okay on the inside, but not great as an edge rusher, so they desperately have needed someone else to buoy that pass rush outside of Rashawn Gary. The secondary has not really been that great because I think the lack of a pass rush. They lose Jair Alexander to the Ravens, so I think that was a huge need, and is obviously probably why the Packers were willing to send multiple firsts and then some, and then still pay 26-year-old Micah Parsons this huge contract. So it definitely, for a team that has so many young pieces, has been to the playoffs in multiple seasons. 2 years ago, very close to the NFC title game. Last year, not quite as good after the Jordan Love injury. But yes, this definitely moves the needle for, I still think, one of the best contenders in the NFC.
I was just talking earlier today about the Packers and thinking about their offense and their style of offense. Like, it's pretty conservative. And like, come on, Green Bay, like, get in it to win it. You've got Love here. You're paying them. Like, come on, let's just pick the pace up a little bit. They don't do it They don't do it my way or the way I was thinking earlier, but they do it in this more shocking and awesome way. 2 quick points. Reportedly, money-wise, Chris, he comes in well above Myles Garrett in every category. So he wins. And also, Week 4, Sunday night, is Green Bay at Dallas.
Wow, that's going to set ratings records. The Cowboys, even when the Cowboys are not good, they're kind of like that entity where when they're bad, people want to see them struggle, and then when they are kind of good, they're kind of that hated team out. You know, if you're not in the Dallas area, and they have a huge fan base nationwide, that one. So it doesn't matter. Like, Cowboys games draw. Like, that's why all those years it was always Week 1 Sunday Night Football seemed like it was Cowboys Eagles or Cowboys Giants, just because the ratings were a guarantee. That one, especially with the Packers organization in this trade, will probably be up there with like Bills Chiefs last season, if not higher, in terms of just overall nationwide ratings.
You know, I was talking to Sal yesterday, and Ravens Bills ought to do pretty well. NBC sent out all kinds of stats about their history, Sunday Night Football, and the second highest game they've ever had in their series is last year's opener, Baltimore, Kansas City. I would think the Ravens and the Bills thing is pretty well established at this point, and they have such common narratives, obviously, with what's happened in the last 5 years in the AFC. But the intrigue of the 2 quarterbacks and the 2 contenders that they are, I think it's a great opening night or Sunday night for Week 1.
It's perfect. I mean, like I was just saying, that like that Sunday night in Week 1, I mean, there's so many marquee games now, and there's the Brazil game, all that. But that used to be like kind of the marquee game before they started to do the Super Bowl champion getting to host that Thursday game to start the season. And I think you can also obviously throw in the fact of like how much of a surprise it was for Josh Allen to win the MVP after Lamar Jackson was the first team all-pro quarterback, and Josh Allen was second team. So yeah, like I think that game will be up there with that Packers Cowboys in terms of like most highest rated games. Whether you're looking at CBS, NBC, whatever it is, there's so many networks today. That one will, I don't know if it'll break records, but it will be a contender because there's just so many great storylines for two teams that have been as good on a 7 to 8 year basis as every team in the AFC outside of the Chiefs.
Well, Chris, of course, we talked a lot pre-draft, as we have done for a few years here, about not only just possibilities for the Bills at their pick, but many of the top rookies. I'll just ask this in a broad sense, and you can take it where you want. As the season is about to start, and you and I, and for different reasons, are monitoring all the rookies, at least in my case, the skill position guys. How did we do? I do want to let you run with that, but I'll just give you one thought that I have, in fantasy context at least, is I think we might get paid off on the running backs this year. All the running backs we liked that, many went into day 3, but it seems like there's some real potential for several of the rookie running backs to hit.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say specifically this early, but I think you're right. I mean, I was even watching, I don't know why I was watching this, but like the last Bengals preseason game with Taj Brooks, looks like someone that could ultimately be like him, and Chase Brown can be these 6th rounders that, again, that we talked about at pre-draft, that we're in this running back renaissance, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, but I still think what the Bengals are doing offensively to not pay running backs and just draft high-quality athletes that were productive in college in the 5th and 6th round could ultimately pay off. Bashal Tutin, I think, is going to be a lot of fun in Jacksonville, and it'll be sooner rather than later, which would be just poetic justice for me, that literally owns a shirt that says, do not draft running backs in the 1st round, that he overtakes Travis Etienne and is ultimately, him and Tank Bigsby are the 2 guys there in Jacksonville that are really shouldering the load in that backfield. So if you want to run through any of the other wide receivers or tight ends or running backs that instantly come to mind, we can talk about them. But I think those 2 just popped into my head that I think had really good, apparently training camps and into the preseason.
Another of the bigger names among those types would be Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in Washington.
Forgot about him.
Who may end up being their starter. They still have Austin Eckler. They'll use Chris Rodriguez, but he's somebody. Maybe the last time we talked which was after the draft. His name came up.
Him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that is such an interesting case because he was insanely productive 2 years ago at New Mexico, transfers to Arizona, and was ruled ineligible for some weird sanction, not academically, not because he did something off the field, something with the number that he was wearing. I don't know. I've seen different things, but pre-draft, I mean, to jump 41.5 inches, to be NFL caliber size, and in the one game that he played at Arizona last year, he averaged over 8 yards per carry. So he looked, from his New Mexico film to his one game at Arizona and the pre-draft workout, like someone that you should probably draft in the 4th or the 5th round if we're just, again, pushing down the value at running back. Washington gets him in the 7th, and I'll say hats off to their relatively new GM, Adam Peters, for not going into a summer even and really worrying about when a guy was picked. And, hey, Brian Robinson, yes, past regime, that probably didn't help him and was probably part of the reason that he was traded to San Francisco. But Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt apparently just looked the part right away, even though he was a 7th rounder. So he's someone that I'm sure you've drafted already and will be one of those late-round fantasy running backs that I think will pay off for a lot of people out there, where maybe this is the year. I mean, I don't have anything personally against running backs, but maybe this could be the year where rookies, 2nd year, even 3rd year guys, we start to see, the Tyrone Tracy's and the Chase Browns of the world, that you truly can get quality players. Maybe Ray Davis is one of these guys as a former day 3 pick, that you can, if you have a good offensive line and a good offensive play caller, you can get quality production from that position without paying them enormous amounts of money.
Did you watch Ashton Genty at all? The first game, he might have gone 3 for -1. Yeah. And people were joking about that. But I saw a couple of nice runs from him against the Niners in what would have been, I think, their 2nd game. How does it sound for you with Genty and the Raiders so far?
Yeah, I think the third game too was similar to the first. Like there was no holes. Okay. Like when he was on the field, there were clear run blitzes, and he was either had minus yards or barely had any. But it was more so just because of the lack of holes. The one thing, I mean, yes, against the 49ers, he looked like Ashton Genty that we saw the last 2 seasons at Boise State. The one thing that in watching, and I think this was kind of out there on Twitter as well, it's not just from me, like he looked like running angrier than normal, like he was seeking out contact. And he's small, like he's 5'8", 5'9", certainly very chiseled, has low center of gravity, over 200 pounds. But he can't take a beating like that, like he's Derrick Henry and he's 6'3", 250. So that was just the one minor concern. I mean, I absolutely loved him as a prospect. I thought he was, had the best contact balance of any running back that I've ever scouted. But I'm just hoping, for the sake of probably your fantasy teams or all their fantasy teams out there, and Genty himself, that he quickly learns, like, when he sees a linebacker, he should try to use his speed and his agility before just trying to run those players over in the NFL.
Good point. The latest report on this Micah Parsons trade, Parsons to Green Bay, really, and just a record-breaking contract, tons of guaranteed money. Dallas gets 2 firsts and defensive lineman Kenny Clark, who is 29. You have an opinion of him? I don't. People don't seem to like it.
He is one of the better nose tackles in the NFL. But I think that kind of speaks to the value of that position, that he's been good for a long time. Are you getting 50, 60, 70 pressures and 8 to 12 sacks out of him? I mean, maybe he's reached some of those plateaus at some point in his career, but at 29, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. And it's even an indictment. I'm just thinking about the draft right away. In getting him back to Dallas in the trade, it's an indictment on the Cowboys missing on Mozzie Smith in the same draft where the Bills picked Dalton Kincaid. Remember, that was kind of the thought that they really wanted Kincaid. The Bills leapfrogged them, and then they picked this Michigan nose tackle, Mozzie Smith, who's still on the team 2 years or 3 years later, but has really done absolutely nothing. He's not even a good run defender. So it's kind of like they're patching that draft miss by adding him to this trade. Overall, it's just very strange, but maybe on brand for Jerry Jones at this point.
Yeah. With Chris Trapasso here, Micah Parsons traded to the Packers. Well, you mentioned Kincaid. We want to get into some Bills topics here before we run out of time. Let's start with him and maybe get to Keon Coleman, too. Not this year's draft, but 2 young skill position players that, kind of a lot rides on. I would say especially Coleman at this point. Mozzie Smith is still on the team in Dallas. Dalton Kincaid is still on the team here. But, I mean, how fair is that, or unfair to compare?
I think more so than Keon Coleman, who we can talk about in a second. Dalton Kincaid, to me, I wasn't at training camp this year, but just following it, Hard Knocks, we've barely heard from him, seen him, minimal talk, when there's been a lot about Keon Coleman, that he's looked great preseason and the joint practice against Chicago. Not much from Coleman. I think he is the ultimate X factor on this offense. We're all obviously assuming that the Bills are still going to be one of the best offenses in the league, but I think there is a legitimate, justifiable question of, like, can they rekindle the 31 points a game and the 500-plus points and how efficient they were and moving the chains, not turning it over, just scoring a ton of points? Does Kincaid play any better than he did last season? Because they didn't really get much from him last season, and they still were able to do that. I think he can be, because he does have the talent, that tier below the elite level tight ends in the NFL. And I think when he was on the field pre-injury last year, the Bills, used him a lot. They wanted to target him a fair amount. Even as a rookie, they fast-tracked him into the offense, and he was garnering a lot of targets. He has the yards after the catch ability. He can separate, and I do think Josh Allen likes to see those guys open before firing it in there. Mm-hmm. So he's really interesting to me because I don't know what the Bills are going to get, but if he takes that next step, it would be huge for the offense.
Of course. Are you optimistic for Coleman? I mean, Bulldog is in here to say it. He and many, I think, are expecting a big jump. I don't know if I should be.
I'm not going to say a huge jump, but I think the fact that he's just more determined, and I'm not saying that I don't want Keon Coleman to lose his personality and just be kind of the complete opposite of the player that we saw in that post-draft interview where he was hilarious. But I think going from year one to year two and understanding, like, I'm a professional, I need to take it a little bit more seriously and strengthen my weaknesses, I think we could see a little bit of a better season. I'm just, in general, I mean, maybe just the Josh Allen effect could be huge for him, like it's been for a lot of other receivers.
Yeah.
But I think in general, predicting that someone is just going to be this amazing contested catch receiver is usually kind of fickle to do that unless you're Mike Evans in general, that's just very not sticky from year to year. So if that's where where the Bills believe he's going to win, that Josh Allen, who's certainly not afraid to make a tight window throw, is going to just throw it up to him and he's going to win on 70 or 80% of his contested catches and he's going to be this Mike Evans type, I think that's very much wishful thinking. But it wouldn't surprise me now that he's 22, like we were seeing before the injury, if there are times where he makes some plays and he is somewhat of a red zone threat on a team that wants to spread the football around.
As for this year's Bills draft, Chris, so not much to say about Maxwell Hairston. He'll miss the first 4 weeks. He missed much of camp, the entire preseason. So that is incomplete at this point. I guess they all are. Is there a different Bills rookie that you're maybe most curious about, or somebody that's your opinion might have moved a little bit since the draft?
I think Deion Walker is the obvious one, and I was trying to kind of rattle my brain or like rack my brain for anyone else. I mean, Jordan Hancock, you could say as well. I think he played well in the preseason, and I love like his legitimate versatility to play like 4 different spots in the secondary that's kind of banged up right now, and there's a lot of question marks with. But I think Deion Walker, I mean, he played in the preseason and from all reports during camp like that first rounder that a lot of us expected he could ultimately be after the 2023 season. I mean, at his size, with his nimble feet, first step quickness, it's like you think that he's just someone that's going to eat blocks and, oh man, you got to double team him. You can't get the double teams to him because he can win through the gap so quickly. He really plays like he thinks he's Ed Oliver in terms of his size and his athleticism, but he's 6'7", 350. And even when he doesn't get home, we saw in the preseason, puts his arms up in the air and he can bat down passes at I think, relatively very high rate. So he's someone that I think the Bills were not sure what they were going to get. I mean, he's another one that's only 21 years old. He's very young, like one of the youngest players in the draft. And if they can get any bit, 70, 80%, or even 90% of what they saw in the preseason, that would go a very long way. And I think helping out the secondary to not have to cover as long, when they're facing the Joe Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons and those high caliber quarterbacks that they have on the schedule.
Right. Last thing quickly, to go back to the draft at large, it sounds to me like many of the rookie receivers are trending up from when they were drafted. Certainly Emeka Egbuka with Godwin hurt in Tampa. Ted McMillan sounds like that's going really well. They've traded Adam Thielen. Matthew Golden, good reviews in Green Bay. Burden in Chicago might not be first on the depth chart, but he did some things. I think as a group, maybe it's been a good summer for those guys, that position.
Yeah. It was kind of a sneaky good class. I mean, we kind of got, I feel like I probably talked about this pre-draft, that it wasn't a Jamar Chase draft, but I thought in general the class was pretty good, and there was a lot of relatively safe bets, guys who were productive over multiple seasons and tested well. Ted McMillan, back-to-back seasons at Arizona, super productive. Luther Burden, same thing at Missouri. Matthew Golden kind of came on late at Texas, but his separation skill kind of made it feel like he could acclimate pretty quickly. I think even Jack Bash, even though the Raiders have not traded Jacoby Myers, that coming about maybe indicates that they feel good about Jack Bash, who I loved pre-draft, out of the slot. So it was, I think, a sneaky good wide receiver class, even though there wasn't that blue chip talent at the top.
And Dante Thornton made a little noise in Vegas as well. Thank you for this, Chris. What are you working on that you might want to promote or tell us about?
No, not much right now. Just trap sheet at Substack.com. I kind of took most of the preseason off. Didn't want to draw too many conclusions from it. But once we get here now to the regular season, I'm going to be trying to cover the NFL in as unique of a way as possible at trap sheet at Substack.com.
Very good. Thanks again for joining me.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Chris Trapasso with us on the Wester Hotline. Micah Parsons traded to Green Bay. This was one where, I could have spent more time in here talking about the Bills, right? We don't need to talk about whether he was going to be traded to Green Bay. I mean, that's what happened. But could the Bills have ever done this? 2 firsts and a guy, like an Oliver maybe, or even below that for this player. But the money is so historically massive that I don't think, the Bills were ever in position to do that. I wonder if they tried to work it out. Huge trade. The Cowboys open the NFL season next Thursday night in Philadelphia. I'm going to go look. I bet this is moving lines. And by the way, quickly, earlier, I had it in my mind, UB at Minnesota tonight, that the Bulls were like a 9-point underdog. Maybe I saw a first half line. I just saw it on the ticker up there. 17.5 is what Minnesota is favored by against UB, 8 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Lines open for your reactions to this trade or other topics we've been into today and this week. 803-0550. Mike Schopp here, WGR.
This time it does count. A blockbuster trade in the NFL. Micah Parsons does get his deal. He is heading to Green Bay with that trade. He gets the massive contract he was looking for. 4 years, $188 million. $120 million of that is guaranteed. This, of course, does make Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in league history. Going back to the Cowboys, 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. For the Bills, it was a close practice today, but they were able to unveil their 2025 rival jersey. The Bills, along with the rest of the AFC East and the NFC West, are going to be taking part in that. For the Bills, they are calling theirs the Cold Front jerseys, and they'll be wearing them at home against New England Week 5 on October 5th. We also have Week 1 of college football tonight. UB in action. They're on national television at Minnesota over on FS1. Kickoff is at 8 o'clock. You can listen to that game over on our sister station, The Bet 1520. Other notable games starting up in the next few moments. Number 25, Boise State at South Florida, and then a neutral site game at 9. Nebraska taking on Cincinnati over at Arrowhead Stadium. And then the Bisons, they are on the road versus Indianapolis, 6:35 start time, and with the UB game going on around the same time, the Bisons will be over on 107.7 and 104.7 The Wolf, while the Yankees, they're in Chicago versus the White Sox at 7:40. That's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
My understanding is over the course of the past 3 or 4 days, the Cowboys engaged with the Packers. They struck a deal about 2 days ago. And then in secrecy, the Green Bay Packers and David Mulugeta, who's Micah Parsons' agent, who the Cowboys did not negotiate with, struck this deal. Micah Parsons is now a Green Bay Packer.
Ian Rappaport, so there it is. 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark to Dallas. Twitter just throwing haymakers at the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. It is one-way traffic, absolutely giving away the best defensive player in the league, at least arguably, for that level of compensation. And the Packers being willing to throw the draft picks Dallas's way, and more significantly, the money. It's awesome. It's just an awesome thing. Trades are great. They're great when they're like this. So Dallas is just totally getting buried in the reaction to this move. Many of us thought it was just never going to happen, that, come on, right? They have to figure this out. And instead, Dallas just decides to flip Micah Parsons. There's a bet on our board, Jeremy and no, it's Joe and Nate, I guess, whether Dallas would extend Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, and Nate wins it because in the end, Parsons gets traded. 803-0550 if you want to react with me, Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off through tomorrow. Here's Bill with us. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Mike. Hey, with the exception of the Josh Allen pick, and that was a long time ago, Bean's first 2 rounds, the picks have been pretty much either some of them been horrible or just bad altogether or just average, in my opinion. And if the Bills could have pulled this trade off, Ed Oliver, who would we get him in the sixth pick in the first round, I think, 6th or 9th in the first round or whatever it was, he hasn't lived up to that status. He's a good player. He's not great. If we could have gotten Parsons for Ed Oliver and 2 first-round picks, I would have done it in a second because Bean's track record in the first 2 rounds has not been that great. I would have taken this deal in a second if we could have gotten what the Packers did with this.
Well, they just really didn't have the money, or at least the flexibility. Maybe you'd tell me they could always have found it. But they have made, I want to say, too many other big moves to be able to just freely make this one. I mean, I think every team would look at the compensation, any contending team, and say the same thing as you are. I wouldn't say different as far as like the Bills roster. But $188 million and all that guaranteed money is just beyond franchise-defining stuff. And the Bills have just done plenty of that. I mean, Green Bay has Jordan Love. The Bills have Allen. But I'm thinking about Vaughn. I'm thinking about a lot of these mid guys, $10, $20 million contracts that are mid actually in the NFL, receivers and Knox, and just maybe they just couldn't play in this one. I'd love to know, like, whether they, like I said at the last segment at the end, did they talk about it? Did they ask themselves, is there any way we can do it? They might have had reason to know what the money could be without being able, I guess, legally to go through the agent unless they have somebody on their roster with the same agent, which they might. I don't know. There's probably rules against that, but come on. And, every team's going to, that cares enough, plan out what they think it would cost them if they were to trade for this player. But Ian Rappaport is there to say that the trade was done. There were people on the internet who were talking about the Packers for the last couple of days, so some people knew. One guy apparently, I just saw through Catherine Fitzgerald, the Buffalo News, is in the business of breast surgery, and that he has patients who were telling him that Parsons is being traded to Green Bay, and he tweeted it like yesterday. So sometimes, right? Sometimes random people find out these things. Here's Matt with us. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how you doing? I know Bean made some trades in the past, like for Diggs and for, he signed Miller, which was, an attempt at getting some stars or whatever. I mean, Diggs was more of a projection because he was never like a real superstar in terms of what he was prior to coming to Buffalo. But it just seems like he's not willing, or we're not able to go out and get like these stars in their prime, like some of the other teams like Philadelphia is willing to do, and obviously Green Bay. And it's just, where's the not settling for just good players and looking to get like superstars on the team? It just seems like we're always okay with just having a bunch of really good players and no actual stars other than Allen. And I think that in some way is probably hurting us in the playoffs, because that's when those players are the ones that shine, like Chris Jones in Kansas City, if they take over games. We don't have a player other than Allen that can take over a game in those situations. And, it just seems that we're always going to be looking for that and not finding it. And at some point, I think you have to just go get it. And
well, thanks, Matt. I get the point. These trades are very rare. I'm not sure I want to knee-jerk to, why don't the Bills ever do this? I mean, they've done their share of big moves. They've also done, because you can't only make big moves, they try to be judicious about it within the terms that they have. And I think, like I just mentioned, I think at receiver and thinking about Knox, like at times they've maybe overpaid, just having the means to do it. And if I'm not oversimplifying things, you get to a point where you're just not in the room for something of this magnitude. So if you want to criticize, like you guys are both doing that, the people who called in different ways, criticize them for that, okay. But it's just this is a kind of trade that almost never does anybody make. This is the kind of player that does not get traded. Sometimes they end up walking. But this is the kind of player that does not get traded. He doesn't get to his second contract with Dallas, and he was dominant. I mean, just unanimously felt that this is a dominant player. So you want to criticize one of 30 teams that didn't make this trade, or should it happen more often? It might have to be that they back off on some of these mid kind of free agent deals and save their cap room for this kind of an opportunity. And, really, is this too long ago? You mentioned Diggs. Like, when Bean walked in the door, he and McDermott got busy cleaning out that space. And it was jarring. How about that with Watkins and with Darius? Like, they did that. They cleaned it out. And they were, Diggs wasn't top of market exactly, but they were able to do that and then pay him and then, renegotiate with him once, if not two more times. So, I mean, that was a great move, I would say. And to me, it's a little much to be like, how come the Bills never do this? Most teams never do this, of a player on this kind of level, because this kind of player does not get moved. The story, I think, is Dallas's incompetence. And sure, people will say it, and maybe already are. Criticize the Bills for not capitalizing on Dallas's incompetence. We took calls from people in the spring who thought they should trade James Cook for Micah Parsons. James Cook plus probably, but that did not happen. This is massive. Parsons to Green Bay. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for your calls. I'll be right back. This is WGR. Fire season is here. Doesn't take much for a spark to become a disaster. Faulty wiring, kitchen accidents, lightning. These things can cause Mike Schopp here. The big trade this hour, Dallas sends Micah Parsons to Green Bay for 2 first-round picks and defensive tackle Kenny Clark. Parsons breaks through the glass ceiling with money from the Packers. Just an insane development here in the NFL today. And fun. Not just crazy, but fun. Here's Ricky next. Hi, Ricky.
And how you guys doing?
I'm fine. You're welcome.
I just want to say, spending all that money on one player, I get it. He's a generational player. I don't know the salary cap too well, but like Philadelphia's been putting money down the line to, buy players. But eventually, in my mind, that's going to catch up with you. The Bills, the way they've been doing it, from my point of view, is they've been signing players throughout their team instead of one person at one position, except Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And we paid our guys that are worth our team. Find out spending money on somebody else and not being able to sign somebody 2-3 years down the line that might help you in a certain position is not what I think should be done. So I agree with the Bills. Parsons is good for him. He's a great player, but that much money guaranteed to one player, we saw with Von Miller, was great for the first, 8 games, and then he got hurt, and we're stuck with that for another 2 years.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Miller was older, so you'd like to think, especially if you're Green Bay, that this guy will hold up for, longer. If he doesn't, it's a disaster. Thanks for the call. So in terms of the odds, the opener, Philadelphia-Dallas, is up to 7.5. Green Bay is favored by a couple points against the Lions. I wonder if they were favored before this. What a bump. You've got tickets to the opener, Detroit-Green Bay at Lambeau Field, and now you have this in your lap. What excitement for the fans, there. Green Bay is up to tied for 5th in the Super Bowl odds at plus 1,400. This is from BetMGM. Bills are still tied for the best at plus 600, so 6-1. Green Bay could not have been tied for 5th before this trade. I mean, Detroit is tied with them. And Dallas was probably much higher, but now they're plus 6,500. So everybody on Twitter is saying goodnight to the Cowboys' chances. I have a Dak Prescott MVP bet. I think, thinking of stats and fantasy football, this might be good for him. If, everybody gives their best and they're good enough where the season doesn't go completely off the rails. But the worse the defense is, the better for the stats of the quarterback and the receivers, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. So that might help Prescott in sort of a maybe counterintuitive way. But if the team doesn't win 12 games, the quarterback is not going to be the MVP. So I feel like that's dead now. Unless you can see Dallas, winning anyway. Maybe. Green Bay is now the new NFC North favorite at plus 175. That's got to be also the effect of this trade. Kind of takes your mind off the hat bracket a little bit. What can you do? But if you want to vote on our hats, go follow WGR 550 on Twitter, and you can do that. Takes a little bit of this, They stole our thunder. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's a little unfair.
Sal and I talked before the trade, more Bills focused, and that'll be next. Then my chat with Chris Trapasso, which is when the trade was happening. That'll be really cool to listen to now that we know all the details. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.